game that summoned death. They picked a room no one loved. Room 312 sat at the end of the third-floor hallway, its windows clouded by chalk dust and years of breath fogged against winter glass. A crooked poster about the Bill of Rights hung half-torn above the map of the United States. The blackboard was scored with ghost equations, faint white threads that never fully erased. Thunder rolled somewhere above the flat school roof, the kind that moved like furniture across a ceiling. The emergency lights hummed with a steady fluorescent grrr that felt like a headache. From the hallway, the battered wall clock ticked too loud for an empty building. 6 seniors crouched around a desk they dragged to the center: Chris, Anna, John Kelly, Mark, and Lisa. A coffee-stained Ouija board lay across the tabletop like a bad idea spread flat. The planchette, clear plastic with a tiny round window, caught the light and made a cold little halo. Midnight, Chris said, trying to sound fearless. "We said we'd start at midnight." The second hand scraped over the 12 tick. "Guys," Kelly whispered, "detention was spooky enough in daylight. We're going to get expelled." Anna tucked her hair behind one ear and squared her shoulders. "We're graduating in June. What are they going to do, take back the cafeteria pizza?" She smiled, but it didn't settle her hands. She kept rubbing her palms over her jeans as if they might catch. John fiddled with the window latch. It clacked once, twice, then gave with a creak. The door swallowed. Cold air poured in, smelling like wet leaves and rain. Somewhere in the dark corridor, a locked door boomed shut, the echo sliding away like a swallowed shout. They arranged themselves around the board. Lisa, who'd found the thing in her grandmother's attic, placed the planchette in the middle, with slow reverence, like laying a coin on a tongue. "We don't joke," she said. "Even if it's a game, we don't joke." "You brought the candles?" Mark asked. Lisa nodded and pulled a pack of short white tapers from her backpack, along with a matchbook pilfered from a diner that still let seniors drink coffee at midnight. The first match hissed, and the sulfur bite snapped into the air. When the candlewick took it, made a tiny wet pop. They lit 4 more, each one caught with a whispering thread of flame that crackled in its own throat. They killed the overheads. The room dropped into a low buzz, and the candles clicked softly as they breathed. Rain ticked the glass with impatient fingers. "Everyone touched the planchette," Lisa said. 2 fingers each, no pushing. They placed their hands. 6 pairs of fingertips quivered against plastic. Chris chuckled once, a thin sound. "If you believe," he said. "If not, it's still a story." "Spirit," Lisa said, and her voice didn't feel like it belonged to a 17-year-old. "We invite you with respect. We ask for guidance. We ask for a sign." The building's HVAC coughed somewhere in the walls, a rusty throat clearing deep behind the plaster. Nothing moved. They breathed. The clock ticked. Anna exhaled and said, "Okay, Spirit, are you with us?" Her voice landed lightly, a feather that hoped to be a key. The planchette twitched. "Hey," Mark said, pulling his fingers back. "Hey, don't." "No one's pushing," John said. He pressed his fingertips back down. "Right," no one answered. The planchette slid to yes. They watched it. Its feet made a dry insect scrape over the cardboard of paper that ran up the spine. A fluorescent tube overhead flared, went bright, and then settled with a sizzle like bacon in a pan. Chris swallowed. "Okay," he said. Name the planchette jerked, impatient. "E, then V, then A, then N." "Evan," Lisa whispered. "Evan, who, C-O-L-E." John's mouth opened. "Wait." He glanced at Kelly. "Wasn't there a local Don't, Lisa said. Don't say anything real. Mark leaned closer, candlelight shaking across his cheekbones. Evan Cole died 2 years ago, he said. They executed him at Greystone. 10 counts, maybe more. They said he never confessed, not once. The rain slashed harder, a diagonal rumble on the glass. Somewhere far below a steel exit bar thumped as if someone tested the home. We're not inviting him, Anna insisted, though her fingertips didn't lift. We're asking for anyone. But the planchette didn't care about invitations. I-A-M-N-O-T-G-O-N-E. It spelled fast, like it already knew their hands. Chris tried to laugh. It came out wrong. He looked at Lisa. Tell it to prove it isn't one of us, he said. Tell it to move something that doesn't want to be moved. Lisa nodded, throat dry. Evan, if that's you, she said, give us a sign. The blackboard trembled with a sound like a bass string plucked a low boing that hopped across the chalk tray. A stub of chalk rolled, hitting the tray lip with a tick. Tick, tick, then dropped tack onto the tile. The emergency lights flickered. Their hum climbed, then dipped, then climbed again, as if a moth beat inside the ballast. Kelly flinched. Okay, she said. We heard you. Ask why he's here, John said, eyes fixed on the board. Why are you here? Lisa asked. T-O-F-I-N-I-S-H. Finish what Mark asked. The planchette lunged. It skittered so fast that the scraping sound turned into a staccato ring, a frantic chitter that made Anna clamp her teeth. Yo, you. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The candles leaned, dancing in a draft that had no obvious door. Chris shook his head, tried to reclaim whatever was left of the joke. Okay, he said. Okay. Then show us a parlor trick, Evan. He lifted one finger from the plastic. Somewhere in the hallway, a metal trash can toppled with a hollow clang that ran down the corridor like a bowl rolling. The clock said 11:58 and announced it with 2 authoritative ticks. Tick, tick, like a tutor rapping a knuckle. Lisa tightened her jaw. Keep both fingers on, she said, or we stop. Chris put his finger back softer. Fine. Ask a yes or no, Anna said. Something easy. Do you mean us harm? Lisa asked. The planchette scraped. It stopped over yes, making a little scuff-scuff as if pleased to perch. A pencil on the teacher's desk snapped by itself, a dry crack that felt like a twig under a boot. Anna's hand started to tremble. Okay, she said. We stop. We say goodbye. That's the rule. Lisa swallowed and moved the planchette toward goodbye. It resisted. Don't force it, John warned. Just don't force it. The window panes rattled in their frames, a teeth-on-edge jitter that sounded like silverware shaking in a drawer. The candles hissed as if breathed on. The hum rose into a thin, electric whine that seemed to come from the air itself. Kelly stood. I'm not doing this anymore, she said, voice breaking. I'm not. The planchette left their fingers. No one pushed. It shot across the board, hit the lip of the desk, and bounced hard, flicking into the air so fast that for a second it was a bright coin sailing. Chris had just enough time to look up. Chris Anna said, Don't. The planchette struck him squarely in the chest, right of the sternum. There wasn't a lot to see. The plastic cracked, his breath cut. He folded like a paper thing that had forgotten how to be three-dimensional. He hit the floor on his knees and then his shoulder. His fall made a blunt thud, the kind that sounded wrong because living weight shouldn't land like that. Somewhere in the dark, a water fountain sputtered into life, burbling once, and then choking off. Chris Kelly reached him, slid on her knees, pressed her palm over the dent in his shirt. She didn't pull it away. She didn't want to know what her skin would say. "Call 911, John said, voice too steady. Lisa's backpack zipper rasped as she tore it open, a sharp zit that felt obscene. A pager on Mark's belt chirped one bird note, then went silent, as if ashamed. Mark stared at Chris's face, at the slow, uncomprehending surprise that kept not resolving into anything else. "He needs an ambulance," Mark said, and the way he said need made Anna shiver. The phone in the hallway pay booth picked up on its own and gave a dead dial tone, a hollow, endless beep, like a hospital monitor that had forgotten what it watched. Lisa stood so fast, her chair toppled. It clattered sideways, the legs scraping the squeal out of the floor like chalk on aluminum. "We have to go," she said. "Now. Now." John grabbed the board, snapped the planchette away from where it had fallen, and shoved the cardboard into his backpack, as if putting it away would make the last 5 minutes rewind. "We need to get him downstairs," he said. "There's a night guard in the lobby." They lifted Chris by his armpits. His head lolled, wait, a kind of answer. From the hallway, the clock ticked into 11:59 and did it loudly, each second a toe tap on a coffin lid. As they staggered toward the door, the hinges complained in a long, slow creak, like a thing waking up wrong. Behind them, the blackboard rattled again, woo-woo, then stilled. The hallway seemed to lengthen, a trick of adrenaline of light. Their shoes squeaked on old linoleum. They didn't look in the trophy cases, didn't check the corners. Lisa kept glancing back, as if something might follow, wearing their friend's shape. They reached the stairwell. Mark pushed the bar. The crash bar thunked without opening. The lock stuttered with a metallic clack, clack, and then froze. A distant intercom popped in the ceiling cuck and whispered nothing. "Different door," John said. Other end. They ran. The fluorescent lights along the corridor began to strobe. And with each flick, the hum rose, fell, zizz like a saw, catching and catching and catching. The PA speaker whispered backward syllables, S skoak, just on the edge of hearing. A set of science lab beakers clinked together on their own countertop, a tiny glass applause with no hands. Chris moaned once. It barely counted as a sound. "I can't carry him," Anna said, voice wet with air. "Keep going," Lisa said. "We'll get the east stair." They reached the far door. The window in it buzzed as if someone were speaking through the wire mesh. The handle squealed and Mark forced it. It opened. They spilled into the stairwell. Concrete steps, industrial smell, a draft that smelled like bleach. Below them, somewhere deep, a heavy door slammed, and the echo climbed back up like a warning. They started down, careful, all their care too late. At the first landing, the school made its own decision. Every clock everywhere struck midnight at once. The hallway clock, the principal's office mantel, the forgotten metronome in the music room. 12 heavy notes falling through walls like cannonballs. Between each note, a whisper unspooled in reverse, a voice winding backward through a cassette SERP RS reppers until it sounded like something trying to swallow itself to speak. On the landed floor, a pencil rolled out of nowhere and cracked under Mark's heel snap, sharp as bone. Anna froze. "Lisa," she said. "What did you bring here?" Lisa didn't answer. From above, the blackboard in room 312 screeched as if a nail dragged across its whole length, and the sound ran down the stairwell like a blade. On the lowest floor, a janitor's cart bell dinged itself ding and kept a nervous rhythm ding. Ding, ding, as if pushed by hands that never learned warmth. They made it to the lobby, but the guard desk was empty. The front doors were glass the night beyond, black and wet. The exit bar waited. Mark hit it. The alarm bleated a honking, flat-lined wail that should have woken a neighborhood, but the doors didn't move. wail guttered into a sickly beep. Beep. Bee, and died. Call John said again, and this time, his voice was not steady. Lisa lifted the payphone receiver. The line answered with deep, static shh, like ocean inside a seashell too big for the ear. Under the static, a man's chuckle arrived, backward syllables reeling into silence. Hararai. Anna put both hands to her ears. Chris sagged between them and gave one breath that sounded like a lost thing coming home. Somewhere in the school lockers banged open in a rolling wave, clank, 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 like a parade of empty ribs. The planchette, though it lay in John's backpack, now clicked against its own plastic, once ticked like a tongue against a tooth. Lisa looked at the dark. She didn't cry. We go back, she said. We end what we started. John met her eyes. He didn't argue. They turned 6 kids and one secret gravity pulling them upstairs into the noise. As they stepped away from the lobby, the rain on the doors softened a hush that felt like listening. The PA whispered again. Sass then swallowed even itself. They climbed. Room 312 waited with its candles guttering and the board gone from the desk, as if a hand had swiped it and slid it somewhere they couldn't see. The blackboard vibrated in its frame with a low bone-string hum. The fluorescent stuttered to a flat line, then flared bright enough to buzz like a hive. The planchette, wherever it was, made a small, satisfied click that somehow came from every corner. Lisa stepped through the doorway. Evan, she said you have your sign. Now listen to us. The hallway clock, though it should have been silent, now ticked once more, louder than a heartbeat. And the room answered not with words, but with a laughter that didn't need a mouth. It arrived like breath on the back of the neck, then grew into a ragged, reversed chuckle that bounced off the old plaster. The candles all gave one tiny pop in chorus. Finished the air, seemed to say. They were still counting the cost when the game decided who would pay next. They filed back into room 312, their breath fogging in the stale air. Chris's limp body had been dragged against the wall, a blanket of denial thrown over him. No one wanted to say the word. Not dead, not yet, just hurt. Hurt badly. Anna's eyes wouldn't leave him. Her hands trembled as she kept wiping her palms against her thighs. He's breathing, she whispered. I think he's breathing. The candles sputtered one after another, a wet hiss like someone licking their fingers and pinching fire. The blackboard rattled again, a low boing like a bass guitar string vibrating against stone. Somewhere above, water pipes clanged, knocking like fists inside the ceiling. Kelly pressed her back to the wall. We should leave. We should climb out a window, break it if we have to. No, Lisa said. Her voice had changed, low, deliberate. We end this. We send him back. Who, John asked, though he already knew. His voice cracked like glass under weight. You mean Evan? The planchette, now resting in John's bag, shifted inside on its own. It clicked once, tick a muffled tooth against plastic. Anna spun, eyes wide. Did you hear that? Yes, Mark whispered. And I don't want to hear it again. Lisa stepped forward, her candle casting long shadows that bent like arms across the wall. If we stop without saying goodbye, we're trapped. That's the rule. The hallway clock ticked once loud, deliberate like a hammer nail. The PA system crackled, kazast, then whispered a backward hiss before cutting off. Anna pressed her hands to her temples. I can't stay in here, Annalisa began. But Anna had already stepped toward the door. She wrenched it open. The hinges screamed, against rust, sharp enough to sting. The draft that entered whistled low, a tunnel breath. She ran into the hallway. Mark followed, calling her name. The others hesitated, torn between the game and their friend. Anna didn't stop until she reached the girls' bathroom across the hall. She pushed inside. The fluorescent tube over the sinks flickered. It buzzed, then flared white-hot, sizzling like grease before dimming again. A faucet dripped tap, 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 echoing sharp against the porcelain basins. She gripped the counters, staring into the mirror. Her reflection wavered in the sick light. She looked pale, lips bloodless. "It's not real," she whispered. "It's not real, it's not behind her." A stall door banged shut, banged so loud it made the mirrors quiver. She spun. Nothing. Just 4 closed stalls silent. Another drip hit the sink, louder now, tapped like a knuckle. Her chest heaved. She gripped the mirror harder. And then her reflection smiled. Not her smile. Wider, hungrier, with eyes dripping red. Her real eyes burned. She shrieked, clutching them. A scream ripped out of her throat, high and jagged, bouncing down tile walls like glass shattering. From the hallway, the others heard it ee and froze. Anna Mark slammed into the bathroom door. It rattled in its frame, thump, thump, thump as he shoved. Inside, Anna staggered, clawing at her face. Blood pattered the sink, drip, 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 mixing with the faucet's rhythm until both became a chorus. The mirror groaned a warped creak like a throat opening. Her knees buckled. She collapsed. Her last sound was a wet gurgle. When her body struck the tiles, the crack was sharp as ice snapping. The others burst in too late. Kelly screamed at the sight, Anna on the floor's eyes weeping red, her body twitching with fading spasms. Lisa dropped to her knees beside her. She pressed trembling fingers to Anna's neck. No pulse, just the echo of what used to be a heartbeat. From every sink at once, the faucets shrieked on S-shit, blasting water that smelled like rust and pennies. The lights buzzed, flickered, then blew out with a brittle pop, showering tiny sparks. In the dark, something whispered. Not Anna. Not anyone in the room. A man's voice, low and smug, curling out of the tiles. "You asked me to finish." Somewhere far off in the school, a fire alarm gave a single hollow honk, then died. The lockers down the hall slammed in sequence, bang, 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 like marching boots. Mark stumbled back, gagging. John dragged Kelly out. Lisa stood last, staring at Anna's body until the water finally sputtered into silence. When they regrouped in the hall, none of them spoke for a long time. Their breaths were ragged, the silence heavier than grief. Chris's body still waited in room 312. Now Anna lay broken in the bathroom, and somewhere between the walls, Evan Cole was laughing. The PA whispered again, "Ha ha ha," reversed vowels stretched like rubber bands. The hallway clock talked once too loud, too final. Lisa's voice came soft but steady. 2 are gone, 4 remain. We play until he's finished, or none of us leave. No one argued. The hallway smelled like iron and fear, and the night was only beginning. The hallway smelled of rust and rainwater like a forgotten basement. They moved together, 4 survivors, Lisa, John, Kelly, and Mark. Chris and Anna were gone, and their absence like holes burned into the group. John gripped his backpack tighter, the Ouija board thumping against his spine with every step. "We should burn it," he said. "Just set it on fire and be done." Lisa shook her head. "You can't just burn something like this. It doesn't work that way." "Then how does it work?" Mark demanded. His voice cracked with exhaustion. Lisa's eyes glinted in the dim light. "We finish the ritual. We tell him goodbye, or he won't leave." The fluorescent tube above them hummed zzz, flickering in sick white pulses. From far below, a door slammed, bam, echoing like a gunshot in an empty canyon. Kelly whimpered and covered her ears. "I don't want to play anymore." "You think I do," John snapped. "But we don't have a choice." They turned a corner into the science wing. The air here smelled of chalk dust and ammonia, sharp and chemical. Cabinets lined the walls full of beaker scalpels and preserved specimens floating in yellow jars. One of the jars creaked the glass, shifting against metal brackets with a squeal. Inside, the suspended frog bumped against the glass with a dull thud. Mark cursed under his breath. "This place is worse than the classroom." John pushed forward. "We just get to the end, say goodbye, and it's over." They entered the lab. Desks stood in neat rows, but something was wrong. Scalpels, scissors, and dissection knives lay scattered across the tables as though someone had arranged them for a feast. As soon as John stepped inside, the metal tools rattled tink, tink, tink like silverware in an earthquake. The chalkboard at the front of the room shrieked, and nails sharp as claws on bone. Kelly screamed, "No, I'm not going in there." But John was already halfway to the center desk. His hand hovered over the Ouija board in his bag. "We finished this," Lisa's voice broke. John Waite, a scalpel lifted from the nearest table with a metallic scrape. Then another and another, the sound of steel whispering free from wood. The knives hung in the air, trembling like compass needles. "Down," Mark shouted. He dragged Kelly behind a desk. Lisa ducked too. John froze. 6 blades hovered around him, their points glinting in the flickering light. The fluorescent lights above popped, plunging the room into a strobe of black and white. Each pop echoed like firecrackers down the hall. John spun. "It's not real, it's not real." The knives whistled, slicing through air. The first stabbed into the wall beside his head thunk. The second cut across his arm. He screamed. The sound was raw tearing bouncing across the lab tiles. John Kelly shrieked. 3 scalpels hit the floor around him, clink, 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 before leaping back into the air like puppets pulled by strings. Lisa lunged forward, reaching for him. "Drop the bag, give it up." But John clutched it harder. "No. If I let go, he wins." The largest dissection knife launched forward with a whoosh and buried into his chest with a wet thud. John gasped, stumbled backward. His backpack slid off his shoulder. The Ouija board spilled out onto the floor. As it hit the tiles, it made a hollow clap like wood splitting. The planchette clattered beside it, tick-tick spinning in place before stopping on yes all by itself. John staggered, blood spreading across his shirt. His eyes searched for the others, desperate. Lisa reached for him again, but the knives weren't finished. They struck in a storm of sound, thunk, crack, burying into desk wood floor tiles, and finally into John's body. The final blade drove through his shoulder, pinning him against the chalkboard with a screech of metal on slate. His scream tore through the hallway, then it cut short. His head fell forward. Silence. One scalpel dropped to the floor with a tiny clink, the sound of punctuation on a death. Kelly sobbed into her hands. Mark pulled her away from the sight. Lisa stared at John's still body, the knives trembling once, then dropping around him. She bent down, picked up the Ouija board, and whispered, "You're feeding him. Every time. You're feeding him." The PA system crackled again. "Kazist," then coughed out a reversed laugh. Hurrah! Like film played backward. The hallway clock ticked once more too loud, a cruel reminder that midnight was far from over. Lisa stood clutching the board. Her eyes gleamed in candlelight. 3 left. The laughter followed them out of the lab. They left the science lab in silence, each step heavier than the last. 3 remained: Lisa, Mark, and Kelly. Behind them, John's body hung against the chalkboard, a grotesque marionette pierced by steel. The memory burned, even when they tried not to look back. Kelly couldn't stop shaking. Her sobs came in short bursts, catching in her throat. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered. "We'll all die." Lisa clutched the Ouija board to her chest. "If we stop now, we already have." Mark walked beside them, jaw tight. "She's right. Either we end it or we're next." Above, the fluorescent tubes hummed zzz, as though insects buzzed inside the wires. Somewhere down the hall, a locker slammed shut. Bang! Echoing in the emptiness. They reached the old library. Dust hung in the air like smoke. Tall windows were lined with heavy curtains frayed at the edges. Their candlelight threw the shelves into monstrous shapes. Kelly stopped in the doorway. "No," she whispered. "Not here." "Kelly, please," Lisa said. "We can't split up." But Kelly shook her head. "I can't. I feel like something's waiting." The curtain stirred, though no window was open, whispering swish, like fabric dragged across a coffin lid. From deeper inside, a chair toppled, clattering clack-clack as it rolled. Mark grabbed Kelly's arm. "Stay close." They moved between shelves' shadows, crowding them like spectators. Books sagged on their spines, pages yellow and curling. At the far end, a study desk waited. Lisa set the Ouija board down. The planchette lay motionless on its surface. "Again?" Mark asked bitterly. Lisa nodded. "We finish, or he finishes us." They placed their fingers on the planchette. Kelly's hands trembled so badly, her nails scraped the wood. The board groaned beneath them, creaked as though it resented their touch. The old clock above the librarian's desk ticked once loud and hollow. Lisa spoke. "Evan Cole, you've taken enough." Releases. The planchette slid to no. Kelly gasped. "Please stop." The curtain ripped free of its tie, snapping with a crack like a whip. The rings shrieked against the rod, shirked as the fabric spilled down. Kelly stumbled back. The curtain writhed as though alive, coiling like a serpent. "Run!" Mark shouted. The curtain lashed forward, swish, wrapping around Kelly's neck with a dry thud. She screamed, the sound sharp and strangled, echoing through the shelves. She clawed at the fabric, but it tightened, pulling her off her feet. The rod groaned over her, creak, as her body lifted. Books thudded to the floor, thump, 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 shaken free from their shell. Lisa and Mark grabbed her legs, trying to pull her down. "Hold on, Kelly," Lisa cried. The fabric tightened, fibers squealing as if bones were breaking. Kelly's choking gasps rasped loud, desperate and fading. Her face turned purple, eyes bulging. She kicked weakly, heels drumming the desk. The window behind the curtain rattled bang, 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 as if fists pounded from the outside. Mark screamed in fury, yanking with all his strength. But the curtain only constricted tighter, dragging Kelly higher. Her last gasp came out as a broken whimper. Her arms dropped. Her legs went still. The silence that followed was broken only by the faint creak of rope-like fabric swaying. Lisa collapsed to her knees, staring at Kelly's lifeless body dangling. Mark punched the desk. No, not again. The Ouija board on the desk rattled, its edges scraping against the wood. The planchette slid on its own tick, tick, tick before stopping on yes. Lisa's eyes narrowed. She whispered through clenched teeth, "He won't stop. Not until only one is left." From the PA speaker came a guttural laugh. reversed and broken, sputtering through static. The library clock tolled once dawn, vibrating through the floorboards. Mark pulled Lisa to her feet. Then we end this. Now. Together, they left Kelly swinging gently in the candlelight, the curtain's fabric creaking as though still breathing. The library door shut behind them, its hinges groaned, screaming, final. Only two remained. The library door closed behind them with finality. Only two remained, Lisa and Mark. The silence pressed like weight on their shoulders, broken only by their breathing. Mark's face was pale with fury and grief. She was right there, he said, teeth clenched. We almost saved her. Lisa held the Ouija board tighter. You don't save anyone. Not with him. You only survive. From the hallway, the lockers banged again, clang, 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 like marching boots. The PA system cracked, zeezed, then whispered backward syllables. Shh. Mark shoved a hand through his hair. Then what do we do? Lisa's eyes were cold. We finish it. Or he finishes us. They made their way back toward room 312. The candle still flickered inside, melted to crooked stumps. Chris's body slumped in the corner. The air was heavy with rot and iron. The blackboard warbling, vibrating like a giant's throat. One candle popped, wax spitting across the desk. Mark stopped in the doorway. I can't go in there. You don't have a choice, Lisa replied. They stepped inside. Lisa set the board on the desk again. The planchette lay beside it, twitching as though eager. Mark glared at it. This thing killed them, all of them. Lisa didn't answer. Her eyes never left the board. The hallway clock ticked, ticked, then ticked again louder, toast echoing off the walls. The window rattled in its frame, bang, 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 though the night outside was calm. Lisa whispered, Evan Cole. This ends tonight. The planchette slid fast. No. Mark slammed his fist down. Then I'll end it myself. He snatched the board, lifted it above his head, ready to smash it. The shelves shook violently, thump, 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 as though books hurled themselves against the wood. The blackboard screeched, the sound slicing through bone. The planchette flew off the desk and struck Mark's hand. He staggered back toward the window. Mark, Lisa cried. The glass behind him rattled harder, crack, crack, spider webs forming across the pane. Wind howled through the cracks, woo, filling the room with icy breath. Mark lost his footing. The window burst outward. Glass shattered. Spraying into the night. The curtain rods above clanged clank, dropping rings to the floor. Mark's scream tore into the air as he fell. His body hit the ground 3 stories below, with a distant dull thud, the sound that silenced the night. Lisa staggered to the window, staring down at him. The sight froze her blood. Mark lay twisted neck bent, at an impossible angle, his eyes wide open to the rain. She turned back into the room, trembling. The Ouija board sat neatly in the center of the desk again. The planchette rested on top. It clicked, one stick sliding to yes without a hand touching. Lisa's breath came shallow. She dropped to her knees before the board. Her lips trembled. Enough, she whispered. You win. Just stop. The candles hissed, shh, burning lower at once. The PA speaker coughed static, then released a single word stretched backward. Yes. Something cold moved into her chest. She gasped, clutching at herself. Her throat worked as if someone else were speaking through it. And then her voice changed. It came out deep, guttural, mocking. The voice of Evan Cole told you, I'm not gone. Her own laughter followed, only it wasn't hers anymore. It erupted loud and ragged, ha 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 ha, echoing against the plaster walls until the whole room vibrated. The blackboard rattled bang, bang, bang as if fists pounded from the other side. The overhead lights flickered, buzz, buzz, before blowing out in a chain of popping cracks. Now only darkness remained punctuated by her laughter. Lisa stood slowly, her shadow huge against the wall. She turned toward the door, eyes empty, mouth smiling wide. His voice spoke once more. The game's not over. It never ends. The final candle gave a sharp and the room dropped into silence. Somewhere deep in the school, a clock ticked into the next minute. Lisa's laughter was the only sound that lingered.